Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update. I'm your host for today's program, Paul Demain. Many of the stories read here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. Here's the news read from the day from the Associated Press and other Native American news sources. Leonard Peltier has lost another round in his efforts to compel the FBI to disclose about 10,500 pages of documents about his case. The 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in St. Louis ruled on the case this week, rejecting Peltier's claim that the district court should have reviewed all the documents, not just a sample of about 500 pages. The appeals court said Peltier didn't make that argument during the trial, so that the district court in Minnesota didn't abuse its discretion by not doing so. Further, the appeals court said the lower court was correct in ruling that the Freedom of Information Act's exemptions cover the bulk of the disputed documents, shielding them from disclosure. Peltier is serving 2 life sentences for the death of 2 FBI agents during a 1975 standoff near Oglala, South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Reservation. He has appealed the conviction numerous times, several times all the way to the Supreme Court without success. In 2001, he requested all the FBI records about himself and received more than 70,400 pages of records on his case. Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano said April 29th that dealing with the swine flu virus will be a marathon, not a sprint, and individual citizens have a responsibility to help out. Appearing before the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Napolitano, who is the Obama administration's lead official on the federal disaster response, said that in important respects, state and local authorities representing the first responder role in the widening health emergency. She said some 40 states, for instance, are involved in close coordination and consultation with the federal establishment. There is a lot we don't know yet about this outbreak, but at the same time we have been preparing as if we are facing a true pandemic, even though we don't know the ultimate scope of what will occur, she said. The first U.S. death was recorded earlier Wednesday, a 23-month-old boy brought to Texas from Mexico, and authorities said there have been more than 6 infections around the country in 14 states so far. News from Indian Country reporter Terry Hansen has been checking into Indian Country and has found that so far there has been no reports or suspected swine flu cases to date. And we'll be updating on a daily report here starting tomorrow. We're going to try to find out how Indian Country would respond to this potential threat, so stay tuned. Fire officials say a wildfire sparked by a downed power line burned over 1,200 acres in the North Carolina mountains. Officials say the fire on the Cherokee Reservation began this Tuesday in the Big Cove community. No buildings have been destroyed and no injuries have been reported. Crews from the Eastern Band of Cherokee worked with crews from neighboring counties and the U.S. Forest Service to protect homes and push back the flames. Ray Stamper of the Cherokee Public Safety Department says heavy smoke made driving dangerous on some parts of the reservation. Stamper says officials plan to let the fire burn itself out. Anishinaabe Nation leader John Bocage has applauded a new legislative process undertaken by the province of Ontario, Canada, to amend its century-old Mining Act. The Mining Amendment Act will be the first piece of provincial legislation that expressly recognizes and affirms First Nation treaties and Aboriginal rights, said the Grand Council Chief on behalf of the 42-member Anishinaabe First Nations organization. Ontario's new collaborative approach to developing legislation and public policy is certainly innovative, he said. It is respectful to the recognition of our rights and indicative of the province's commitment to working with First Nations on a government-to-government basis. Introduced on April 30th, the Act includes provisions for First Nations to protect development by mining on lands that have culturally significant sites. A significant amendment to the existing Mining Act requires developers to create work plans for provincial approval, outlining how they will be engaging with and consulting with First Nations. An Arizona tribe has donated $90,000 to 6 Yuma area nonprofit organizations and public agencies. Recipients include the Yuma Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club, the Yuma Community Food Bank, and the Yuma Fire Department. The state gaming compact that allows the Question tribe to offer gambling requires the tribe to make annual contributions from its casino revenues. In negotiation with the state, the tribe got the okay to reserve a portion of the casino revenue that was due to the state and distribute it to area nonprofit organizations. Check out the American Indian Policy blog postings this week that direct readers to new grants available by the USDA for rural development of information technology, including small computer laboratories and emergency service connections. Jason Oberle also brings some interesting questions to the attention of people with a provoking editorial from a Cree man concerned about the Gathering of Nations powwow, while continuing his advocacy for increased tribal sovereignty and improving education of non-natives about native issues. At his blog, you can find several posted videos about the spillover effects of federal Indian policy. If you're interested in federal Indian policy, what's happening in Indian country, the economic stimulus legislation, or a variety of other topics about Indian country, Byron, Jason, and Paul at the American Indian Policy blog provide some useful insight, links, and more. You can find that at ndnpolicy.blogspot.com. Brooke Grant from Los Angeles and Hoopa, California, a member of the Hoopa, Yurok, Kurok, and Chippewa tribes, was crowned Miss Indian World at the 26th Annual Gathering of Nations powwow, one of the most prominent powwows in the world. Grant received the honor out of 25 Native American women representing their different tribes and traditions who competed in the areas of tribal knowledge, dancing ability, and personality assessment. I'm honored to represent all Native American Indigenous people as Miss Indian World. This is the first time a woman from my tribe has been crowned, and I'm very proud of my accomplishments, she said. I look forward to the future and to accomplish my goals as Miss Indian World. The Miss Indian World title is one of the most prestigious honors among Native Americans and Indigenous people. The winner will bring together Native and Indigenous people throughout the world by providing a cultural link between tribes, said Derek Matthews, founding of the Gathering of Nations. As Miss Indian World, she will represent all Native and Indigenous people as a cultural goodwill ambassador for 1 year. Everita Thin, 24 years old from Shanto, Arizona, and a member of the Navajo Nation, was named first runner-up. And tomorrow we should have some more details of about the dismissal of one count of aiding and abetting first-degree murder charges against John Boy Patton Graham in the Aquash murder case trial due to start this upcoming May 12th. Graham's attorney John Murphy has claimed to a lower court judge that his client is a non-Indian under U.S. law, and therefore the federal courts do not have jurisdiction to prosecute him. U.S. Judge Lawrence Pearsall on April 30th dismissed the aiding and abetting charges and warned that 2 other direct murder counts could also be dismissed if prosecutors could not prove that Graham, a member of the American Indian Movement in 1975, was part Indian. If that is the case, Graham would most likely face murder charges in South Dakota State Court, where first-degree murder contains no provisions for parole and a possible death penalty under 1975 statutes. A letter from the Sawyer County Sheriff's Department of Northern Wisconsin apologizes for an incident last August 7th when Indian Country TV reporter Paul DeMaine had his camera grabbed and he was struck by a deputy swinging his flashlight as he took pictures of a car accident scene. In the letter it says, "Dear Mr. DeMaine, regarding the incident between yourself and Deputy Brian Knapp on the evening of August 7, 2008, I want to thank you for bringing Deputy Knapp's actions against you to our attention. Please accept my apology for the actions of Deputy Knapp, not only from myself, but from the entire department. The deputy could have handled the incident in a much more professional manner. Due to your constructive criticism, we are able to address the issue with Deputy Knapp. We are able to provide further education to Deputy Knapp to improve his public relations skills for both the public and the media. Again, we are sorry for your deputy's actions against you and have taken steps to ensure this is an isolated incident. Cordially, James Myers, Sheriff." And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. Thanks for joining with us.